Tony, good to have you here, man.
Happy to get on with you. Thanks, bro.
Yeah, dude. I was honored when you said that you'd be willing to come on when I saw you last year at the speaking event, and you said you listened to a couple episodes.
Yeah, I have. Doug Fiafia is a close friend, and I saw the one you did with him, and Ed Milet. Some of those guys that I've kind of followed over the years, and you do some great work. So I'm happy to be on with you.
No, thank you, man. I feel like I'm part of the poly community a little bit. They've kind of taken me in, dude. I go have dinner with Haloti and his family and all the guys in my program that are Polynesians. They're the best, man. They're such happy dudes always, every time. And so I think that's part of that culture, of that Samoan Tongan culture. You guys just have a zest for life, man. You just have a real enjoyment of life.
Yeah, I think we come from very humble beginnings. Back in the islands of Tonga or Samoa, where my parents are from, you just learn to love people. You learn to love what relationships mean and all of it. Just because of we just don't come from much. So anything we have, we're grateful for, and I think that's kind of the vibrance that we bring to America and just to American culture. I think. And that's something that we need. I think it's always fun to have a Polynesian friend. It kind of spices things up a little bit.
For sure. Well, it's funny, golf is the most humbling game on the planet.
I'd say so.
You got, 60 to 90 guys entering every event. One guy wins.
That's right. And,
you have to learn you're going to lose a lot more than you're going to win. You're going to miss a lot more shots than you make. And even being, I'm going to say it, you're, the best golfer to ever come out of the state of Utah, in my opinion. And you have all these, at one point you were kind of known as the guy with kept finishing in the top 10 and kept getting so close. And in golf, you have to be okay with that. You have to learn that you don't have to win every time. I think that humble beginning probably helps you a lot with that.
Yeah, no question. I think I was quoted after I started winning, a winner is just a loser that kept on trying. And that's pretty much all it is. I think if you're willing to pick yourself up and learn from your past experiences and just keep going, good things are going to happen. I feel like I've always been a pretty hopeful person, faith-filled person, where just keep trying to do the right things and good things will eventually happen. And that's kind of how my career unfolded. I went through a stretch of years where I didn't win, and I was being labeled as that guy that could always come close, but always the bridesmaid, never the bride, and kind of labeled as that guy. But I grinded my teeth through those years and taught myself a lot, just overcoming, and I was able to finally break through in a big way. And
you've had 6 victories now on the PGA Tour?
Yeah, that's right.
That's a lot. That's a lot. How many guys in the history have won more than 6 PGA? Events?
Guys obviously Tiger's, won 82. So right. We're talking about, winning a lot more than that. But 6 is pretty good. I would say for guys that are playing in the modern game. Not a lot of guys have won a lot more than that. Yeah. And the game has changed quite a bit. I don't know if you're going to see guys winning 50, 60 times on tour like Tiger and them did, just with the way the game and just sports evolve, Yeah,
and I think it's
athletes are better.
It seems like it's more competitive than ever now. You ask somebody who's the best golfer alive right now. You got, a couple right there at the top, but at the end of the day, there's about 20 of you guys that anybody could pick as if you're betting who's going to win the event. It used to be all right, you betting Tiger or Phil. Now it's there's 20, 30 of you guys on every major.
Yeah, I would just say the depth of the PGA Tour is more than it's ever been. I think a handful of guys had a chance to win 20, 30 years ago, or at least were highly favored to win those tournaments. And now it's definitely 30, 40 guys that have a chance, and you randomly will get somebody out of the blue, but it'll just explain to you kind of the depth. I will say Scottie Scheffler, by far and away, is the best player in the world right now.
Yeah, he's a step ahead of. He's a little step ahead of everyone else.
There's no question. When he's playing well, especially when he's putting well,
not getting arrested.
Exactly. He's going to be a hard guy to beat. But on any given week, I feel like I play well. I'll have a chance to win.
So when you're playing with those guys, can you tell when a guy's on his game that day versus even normal?
Yeah, no doubt. You know pretty early on after a couple holes. After a couple holes in, you watch guys hit shots, and you're saying, okay, yeah, he's got that thing on a rope today, and so you could be in for some fun. But I love the energy of guys that play well.
I was going to ask you, how is it? Does it help you play better, or does it kind of intimidate you?
No, it helps. I think energy is a real thing. Especially when you're playing golf, and mojo's a real thing. And so if you have guys in your group that are playing well, you seem to just piggyback off that, even if you're not playing well, and you just kind of ride that wave with them. And so I love when that's the case. Sometimes you'll have a guy that shoots 60, 61 in your group, and you shot 64, and it was the most like cruise 64 because nobody was paying attention.
Yeah, sure.
Because this guy was on 59 watch, and so that's happened to me quite a few times where I'm just kind of tagging along, not playing my best, but you know, I end up shooting in the mid 60s because you're playing with someone that shoots in the low 60s. But I love being in a group where a guy's playing well, and you just kind of ride that wave with him.
You got to play, I believe you were the playing partner with Tiger when he won his last Masters in 2019, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Dude, take us back to that. Tell us about that.
So, well, the Masters is my favorite golf tournament in the world.
By far, yeah.
So in 1997, the summer of 1997, I started playing golf, and a huge part of the reason for that was, you know, in April of 97, this guy named Tiger Woods.
Yeah. Is that when he won by like 9 strokes or whatever?
Masters. Oh, yeah, won by 12 shots.
Yeah.
So I picked up golf in the summer of 97 after watching the Masters. My brother had just started with my dad. They were kind of doing their golf thing. But watching that Masters really changed my whole life. I was watching Tiger, and I don't know if it was his aura. I don't know if it was Jim Nantz' voice. Like, it was the whole thing. Augusta National, seeing it on TV. I was like intrigued by it. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, I can see myself there doing that. I almost visualized me wearing a green jacket later in my career, and I didn't even play golf at this time. So fast forward 20 years, 1997, again, I started. In the summer of 2017, I finally had qualified. I knew I was going to qualify and play in the 2018 Masters. So that was kind of where my whole life kind of changed, I feel like, you know, over 20 years of hard work and sacrifice and the whole bit. And I finally had my opportunity to play in the Masters. So my first Masters, most people will remember as my ankle Masters.
Oh, that was when you broke your ankle on the par 3.
So that was in 2000.
Or rolled your ankle.
Yeah, exactly. So that was in 2018, and that was my first Masters.
Didn't you still play pretty good?
I did. I finished in the top 10. But anyways, we fast forward to now my second Masters, and I had a great experience my first one, even though it was a memorable experience. Kind of an embarrassing experience, but it is one that I'm still like very well known for. Everybody still brings up the ankle thing. But in 2019 now, I was in the final group with my golfing idol, which is Tiger Woods. And it was incredible to be there and in that space. But as a competitor, for me, I was like locked in, you know, like I just shot 64 on Saturday.
I was going to say, you had a real shot at winning the whole thing.
Yeah, I just shot 64 on Saturday. And Tiger and I were both at 11 under, and Francesco Molinari started Sunday at 13 under. Okay. The Masters this was a unique Masters in many ways. Obviously, Tiger was back in the mix, but because of the weather, and there was supposed to be rain on Sunday afternoon, they moved up tee times to the morning, and they had us go off in threesomes. Every time we watched the Masters, it was in pairs. It's usually Tiger and Ernie, or, you know, Tiger, and so there was 3 of us, so that made it different. Then also we were playing in the morning. Usually you're used to playing in the afternoon when you're playing well. So those were a couple things that were different. But anyways, I was looking forward to the challenge, and looking back on it, it was an incredible experience. At the time I was in it, you know, like I wasn't really thinking, oh my gosh, you know, I'm playing with Tiger and all those things. Now that I look back, I think I recognize kind of the significance of what I was a part of. To be able to witness, you know, and, you know, Tiger do his thing, and looking back at the shots that he was hitting, and just all of it was more than special. You know, I think, and I hope that it helps me win some green jackets as I move forward in my career. But that experience is like invaluable for me.
Well, what a beautiful moment to be a part of. You know, I mean, it's one of the probably 2 or 3 most iconic golf moments, of our lifetimes, at least, you know, minus some other ones with Tiger, I'm sure. But also, I bet it was really good for him to be playing with you, because you're such a calm person out there. You're not, you know, you're not irate. You're not doing weird things. You're not, you know, yelling at your ball and things like that. It's probably a nice calming presence for him to be playing alongside you as well.
I think my demeanor has helped me throughout my life and my career in playing golf. But you know, I will share, you know, a time. Tiger only spoke once.
Really?
Tiger's intense. I have quite a few stories about being with, you know, playing with Tiger, being on teams with Tiger. Like, this guy's focus is like nothing I've ever seen before.
Wow. Okay.
He's very intense. So we get on the first tee, introduce ourselves, and then I don't have a chance to talk to him again until the 7th tee, just the way things shake out. So we're walking down the 7th tee, and I've told this story before, but it's worth telling just to kind of give you some backstory on this guy is just wild, right? So we get off the 17, we're walking next to each other, and to me, I'm just like, hey Tiger, how's Charlie and Sam, his 2 kids, how they doing? And he looks over at me, just gives me a blank stare, and he's like, they're fine. And he just starts walking ahead of me. I mean, just an absolute cold stone, they're fine, and starts going. And the next time I talked to him was literally on the 18th green when I was congratulating him winning the Masters. So he's a different animal. We all know that. But that's definitely a story to me in my mind that is kind of funny to tell, because it just kind of gives you the irate focus that this dude has.
Dude, that's so funny. You hear about, Kobe and Michael, all these guys that are like that. I have a buddy that played in the NFL. He was a middle linebacker, and he was the most intense human. It's hard to even be around them because they're so focused on what they're getting done, but you see why they're so good at what they did.
100%. There's no question. And Tiger was definitely that way. I'll share one more. In 2019, I got on his President's Cup team. Tiger was the captain of the team. And I was his first pick as a captain's pick, which was a cool thing for me. Again, Tiger was just my guy growing up. So all these things were just really cool for me. And so I make his team. We get through after team play. We're down a couple points going into singles. Singles is where 12 points are up for grabs.
Yep.
We were down the whole week. And his message to us as a captain was just like, I've got the best 11 players playing alongside me. I'm not worried about a thing. You guys just keep doing your thing. We're going to win this thing. There was no doubt. All week we were losing all week. There was no doubt in his mind we were going to win. Going into singles, I had just finished playing a couple matches with Matt Kuchar, and we had so much fun together, playing together. I made some super clutch putts down the stretch to have some of these matches. And so anyways, Saturday night, we get in the locker room with Tiger and the guys, and Tiger, stands up and says, hey, everybody just let me know when you want to play in singles. I gotta submit, the singles matches up lineups pretty soon. So just let me know when you guys want to go. Kuchar steps up right away, and he's like, Tony's playing incredible. Tiger, you got to put him out first. And Tiger's like, well, I'm going out first, so Finau, you're going out second. So everybody starts cheering. It's this whole thing, and so he goes through the whole lineup. So singles come out, and I'm playing Hideki Matsuyama. And Hideki's, one of the best players in the world.
He's been playing very well.
And obviously I was playing well, but I remember thinking to myself, going to sleep that night, I'm like if I lose this match, Tiger's never going to respect me. And I'm like, thanks a lot, Matt, for just, stepping in there and throwing me under the bus here, telling me that, I'm playing the greatest and I need to go out first. Anyways, I was playing good golf, but I felt a lot of pressure kind of going into that situation. So the morning of the matches, we get on the bus, and all of us are just kind of hanging out, talking stories. And again, this is a story again of just the intensity of Tiger. But I'm sitting right next to Tiger on a bus, and all the guys are hanging out behind us. They're listening to music, talking stories, kind of laughing, and about a 40-minute bus ride, Tiger's eyes didn't leave the seat in front of his. I mean, I'm talking like laser focus for 40 minutes like this. And it was just like incredible for me to witness. I'm just sitting there, just doing my thing. I'm just kind of, I'm on my phone, just whatever. And everybody's hanging out in the back, talking stories with each other. Nobody talked to Tiger because he was like laser focused. So it gives you an idea. And obviously he goes out and wins his match. And
how'd you do?
So I get off to a terrible start. Hideki is 4 up through 9 holes.
Oh wow. We
get to the 10th hole, and Hideki has about a 10-footer to go up 5. And I'm thinking to myself, if he makes this putt, this match is probably over. This isn't like playing with my buddies where I'm going to have a chance and this guy's going to make a mistake. So he misses the putt. So I'm 4 down through 10 holes. I birdie 11. I birdie 13, 14, and I par 12. So I have the match through 14 holes.
Wow.
And just the way it shakes out, we're on 18 and we're all square, and Tiger's now watching our match, and really cool, opportunity for me to try and win a match in front of Tiger. The way it shakes out, we end up having the match. And Tiger comes over to me and he's like doing this thing like this. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, dude, monkey balls, bro. I can't believe I thought you were going to lose the match. He's like, the only time I looked up, you were 4 down, and next thing you know, you're on 18. And so it was a really cool moment, where, again, for me, like, these team events are so fun, but Tiger ultimately respected me,
Yeah.
which was a huge deal for me. You know, like he was my golfing idol. And again, I went to sleep that night thinking to myself, if I lose this match, like I'll never hear the end of it. Tiger knows I'm playing well and he throws me out. And the way usually these lineups work, you throw out the guys that are playing the best out.
Yeah,
first.
you need to get a
You need
lead.
points,
Yeah.
especially when you're behind.
Yeah.
So
Did you guys end up winning the whole thing?
we ended up winning. Yeah,
Sick.
16-14. We ended up winning the whole thing, and it was huge. My match was huge in kind of turning the whole thing around. If I lose that full point, I think we end up tying the President's Cup, and that's a lot different than winning. So it was cool to be able to be that involved and to be able to execute when I really needed it, and just come back and again gain the respect of Tiger. It was a whole thing.
Well, what a amazing full circle moment too. I mean, that's the reason you got into golf. Like,
That's
what
right.
a dream, right? Every kid dreams of being able to play with their idol, you could say, especially. But you not only played with it, but you helped win
right.
this tournament and all these other things.
Yeah, it was incredible. Like I've had some really cool moments in my career, but that's definitely one that is towards the top.
Well, it's interesting because usually in sports, when there's one person that's that much better than everybody else, I mean, like you said, he won 82 events. Like, I mean, it's a crazy number, but he elevated the game itself so much, getting people like you involved, but also the amount of money that came in because of Tiger. Now, golf, there's so much money, and I kind of want to touch on this. You got the whole LIV Tour and the PGA Tour, so you chose to stay at the PGA. I mean, they were throwing massive amounts of money. Do you talk publicly? Did they ever make you an offer that you do you talk about that at all? Or
Yeah, so I had an opportunity to go. You know, John Rahm is like my best friend on the PGA Tour, and we gotten close over the last few years. When I moved to Scottsdale, we were part of the same club, so we would have matches against each other at the club, practice rounds together, dinners together, and stuff like that. So John Rahm's a real close friend of mine. So when he went to LIV, I had a real opportunity to join his team and join LIV Golf, which was, at the time for me, it was like, okay, this is a cool, exciting thing that's going on. For me, at the end of the day, it was like, I'm happy to stay on the PGA Tour and continue my career.
well, the rest of us are glad because I can't stand watching LIV. Like it's unwatchable to me. I can't. I love watching golf, but I cannot watch it. I don't know what it is. I just can't. It's just, and it's
a lot
with everybody. Like, it's not catching on with anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're good on the PGA Tour, you can make just as much money.
That's right.
It's like if you're winning, it's fine.
100%.
It's like they were taking the guaranteed money, kind of to go over
and
there.
I tell everybody, LIV was one of the best things that's ever happened to the game of golf.
For sure.
Especially with the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
Our purses all of a sudden overnight skyrocketed to $20 million,
Right.
$20 million purses.
Yeah, like the worst tournaments now are $7.5 million.
Yeah,
you're like,
and it's all because of LIV. LIV basically came in and was like, we don't care what you guys are playing for. This is actually what golf's worth now. And so, and that's they put a stamp on it and said, well, this is what it has to be worth. And so the PGA Tour now, all of our purses are so much bigger. So guys are making a lot more money for playing less tournaments, and we have the elevated events, and
plus you
all kinds of things on the PGA Tour.
history, and you go. I mean, this stuff matters, legacy, all those things. Like, I hate to say it, but like minus the majors, I don't even watch those other guys now. They're a lot of my favorite golfers, but they're just it's out of mind, out of sight. And I think all my friends feel the same way. None of us.
It's been kind of sad to see some of these stars and superstars in our game kind of fade away because of their decision to go to LIV, and it really has happened that way. It's been unfortunate. They only have about 4 times a year to prove themselves and to really put their name out there. And some guys have, Brooks has won, Bryson has won, but a lot of guys, a lot of great players, a lot of great
like
personalities.
Dustin Johnson, some of these guys, they just disappeared, man.
Yeah, their name has kind of just dissolved in all of it, and that's what's been the unfortunate part.
So what happens next? What do you think will end up happening? Is it going to combine again? I know there was talks of that, and it was like going to happen. How involved do you guys get in that? And obviously, you're one of the leaders on the tour, but like, so what happens next?
Yeah, so how I see it, nothing. I don't think anything is going to change for years. I don't think this is a quick fix where it's like, all right, next season I could see this happening. I really don't see it happening for a few years. I do think coming together is going to happen eventually, but I just don't see it happening for 5-6 years.
What's the holdup? What's the biggest problem currently?
Yeah, the biggest problem is just trying to figure out exactly how that works, because there are guys that have a PGA Tour card. How many guys from LIV now are going to be coming over? Oh,
because they would take those guys.
They would take their cards, and so it would shake up a lot of what's going on the PGA Tour. And then also there's a team aspect to LIV, and how would you fold that into the PGA Tour? Because all the LIV guys, they have equity in their teams. They run these teams, and they're very proud of the teams that they have. How do you fold that into the PGA Tour structure? And also, is someone like me going to be able to now have a team, or whose team do I join, or how does the team aspect? So I think trying to figure all that out, I think, is actually a puzzle that maybe isn't ever going to fit.
Well, I can see the draw of like teams, because you see the Ryder Cup and the President's Cup, and they're so fun to watch, right? Even the Olympics, like some of these things that are just like super entertaining to watch. But then you watch like the LIV, and it's like, I couldn't tell you the name of one team. Nobody cares. 100%. It's not working, right? Like we watch the PGA Tour because we have favorites. It's fun because I can go for my guy, you know.
And the PGA Tour, like you said, the history, you know what it means to win a PGA Tour event. I'm not certain what it means when you win a LIV event, you know. And not only that, the golf courses that they're playing, nobody's really familiar with. You know, when we play Bay Hill, when we play the Players Championship at TPC Sawgrass, when we're playing these courses where Tiger's won, Jack has won, everybody knows where the holes are, what holes they are. At 17 at Sawgrass, everybody knows that hole. 18 at Sawgrass, right? You know, at 18 at Bay Hill, Tiger's made how many putts on that green? So people tune in and watch because they want to see, is there going to be more history added to this event? And that, unfortunately, with LIV, there's just that history's not there, and it's going to take time for that to build in. But unfortunately, you know, again, I just don't think a lot of people are watching and paying attention to that. And it's unfortunate because there are so many great players there, and our game has been separated a little bit as far as the amount of players at the top. But at some point, I do see it shaking out. It's just going to be a while.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's fascinating. I mean, and like you said, it's been a great thing for the PGA Tour because of how much money, and they've made it better for you guys, different things. And, you know, they've listened finally. I think that was the problem. The players didn't feel like they were heard. Is that accurate?
The PGA Tour is finally like adapting, you know, and they're finally evolving, and they were forced to evolve. But I think it's a good thing. You know, at the end of the day, you know, what they say in business is like, what has always worked doesn't mean it's going to work moving forward. And that's exactly what the tour ran into, is they thought that their blueprint for the last 50 years was going to carry us into the next 50 years, when that's just not the case. You know, like, some things you have to change. And for the tour, the best thing that happened to us was LIV. We were able to kind of dig into the closet, pull all the skeletons out, and say, okay, well, how do we make this better? And how do we make this the best product now for the next 100 years? And we're in that vulnerable situation right now, and vulnerable state. But I'm a huge believer in the PGA Tour, and I'm so happy I stayed playing on the PGA Tour, because I do think that this is the tour that's going to move forward and continue to progress. Yeah.
No, I agree. It seemed like a really good move in your case. So. Well, I want to back into your story. We kind of more just been talking about golf, but you have a really beautiful personal story, kind of how you got into golf. You kind of talked about it a little bit. You grew up in, you know, Rose Park very famously. I mean, it is, Utah doesn't really have a ghetto, but if it did, it'd probably be over there, you know? It's like, at least, like I'll walk through there in the middle of the night and not blink, you know what I mean? But like at the end of the day, it's a pretty, you know, rough area or low income area. And you have some famous stories of kind of when you started. I think you bought your first 2 clubs is all you had, and you got them at the DI. And maybe tell a little bit more about your origin story and how you got into golf, because I just think, you know, a lot of people already know your story, but a lot of people don't. It's just so beautiful of a story, and I think it's worth repeating.
Thanks. So my younger brother started playing before I did. Gipper was, you know, he was the one that kind of started this whole golf thing. And when I asked him, and from what I remember, he just was intrigued by golf, you know, and I think that he was interested in trying something different, and he was a lot smaller than I was. So I think other sports maybe weren't as attractive to him as they were to me, playing basketball and football. He was really small as a kid. So he ended up picking up golf, and really against my parents' will, really, you know, because my parents didn't know anything about golf. But my dad ended up coaching him for about 18 months before I started. And I basically started, I think, more out of jealousy than anything else. You know,
be left behind when your brother gets all this time with your dad.
Yeah, my brother, exactly. So my brother was hanging out with my dad all the time.
Yeah.
And they came out with an article with my brother, Lemmy Harrington, when he used to work for Fox 13 News, came out with an article, you know, Gipper Finau, the next Tiger Woods. And so then I started being labeled as Gipper's brother. Everybody at school was like, wait, are you that kid's brother? And so it was just this whole thing as a 7-8-year-old, right? I'm just like, yeah, no, I'm not, that's not happening. So I basically started playing golf just because of that. I was like, hey, I told my parents, hey, I want to start playing golf. But for me, I just remember just was like, I just don't want to be labeled as this kid's brother, right? And and he's getting good, so maybe I should give this thing a shot. So that's basically why I started. But immediately, my brother and I, took a pretty good liking to the game, and I think having each other was a huge part of our story. Like for me, having someone to compete against, like on a daily basis.
Especially golf, because you can get lonely out there too. So you had somebody to play with, right? And compete with that was pushing you.
Yeah, it was the three of us, my dad and my brother and I, and my dad was tough on us, we got after it, and he made sure, hard work was instilled in me through the game of golf since I started. It wasn't one of those things where I was dipping my toe in and saying, maybe I should give this a shot, because my brother was already 18 months involved, winning golf tournaments.
I was going to ask, so your dad saw it pretty quick. These kids have a real shot here to 100%. Do something special.
Yeah, and my dad didn't have any background in golf, but he had a lot of experience with sports.
Sure.
Playing basketball, playing rugby, football. And so he understood what it was going to take for us to be great if this is something that we wanted to do. And I think he ended up being happy that we were doing something different. Mm-hmm. So my dad turned from hating golf to all in like overnight, and so he ended up teaching us that way. And one of the ways that I feel like was really humbling, as I look back on, in a story that a lot of people know, but in Utah during the wintertime, golf is pretty much non-existent. Snow, cold weather. Golf is obviously an outdoor sport. But my dad set up like an indoor driving range for us in our garage, where he had a mattress. If you can just picture like a rectangular garage, he set up a mattress with a net right in the middle of the garage. And simultaneously, my brother and I would hit into the garage, into the mattress. So my dad would stand on this side, watch me hit a couple balls, then he'd walk to the other side. And so that became a famous story, but just because I didn't know that was different than what other kids were doing, but that was a way that my dad had taught us hard work. And his big thing was like there's no way you're going to beat the kids from California, from Texas, from Florida in an outdoor sport if you're not practicing all year round.
It's so true, man. You look at how many baseball players come out of Utah. It's like I can count them on one hand.
And at that time there wasn't someone in Utah that I could be like, oh, let me just do what he does. A lot of the guys are from California and these other places. So that was taught to me from a very young age. Just you have to outwork your competition. And that's how we did it, in the wintertime. And I did that for years. We had our garage set up for years, and so many crazy stories. I tell my kids, about some of these sacrifices. I'd be in there hitting balls. And so basically we had a strip of carpet on cement, and we would hit, pick up the balls, hit. But a lot of times, like, it'd be so cold in there, like my hands would actually start bleeding, like, wow. And making contact with like, when there's cement under the under the rug,
sting
like
the hands.
My hands would be stinging. So like half the times I'd go inside just to warm up my hands, get it in the hot water, get back out there, hit some balls. So, a lot of that is a huge part of the humble beginnings as I look back on my upbringing. That but like no excuses. At the end of the day, it's like if there's a will, there's a way, and that was a way for my dad and my brother and I to just outwork the competition while we were young, Well,
you said something even at the beginning. I mean, you really pick it up in 97 or right after, Tiger Woods, and you didn't make your first Masters till 20 years later.
That's right.
And so it's 20 years of hard work. This wasn't like overnight. Obviously, you had a lot of, success, and I think you won the Utah State Amateur or whatever it was, and beat Danny Summerhays, right?
I think you have I obviously had landmarks along the way, and I think you have to have enough silver linings and things go your way to just keep fighting.
Yeah, I should keep doing this.
Right. Like, like I was good.
Yeah.
And I was winning tournaments as a junior and stuff. But, but anyways, we went through those years, and at 12 years old, I get asked all the time, when was it that you felt like you actually wanted to be a professional golfer, or you knew you could do this for a living? And it was at 12 years old. So I started playing when I was 8. And after 4 years, I had qualified for this tournament called Junior World. And it's exactly what it sounds like. All the best juniors in the world, your age, gather in San Diego, and you play a golf course and see kind of where you stack up. And I had played Junior World starting when I was like 10, so the last couple of years. But at 12 years old, I actually won Junior World. And I remember looking at the list of names of the guys that have won that same tournament. And this was in 2002. And so a lot of the golf fans, sports fans know in 2002, Tiger was the guy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Ernie Els, Phil Mickelson, Vijay Singh. And these guys, all their names were on this same champions list as now my name was going to be on. So my whole world changed, I feel like, when I was 12 years old. I had an opportunity to win that tournament, but also look at the trophy and the names that my name was being added to, and it changed my whole outlook. At that time, I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And I was inspired that I could do it because of that, because of what happened there.
You belonged.
Yeah, and I belonged. Yeah. I felt like there was a sense of like, yeah, you're on the path to doing what they're doing, and you just have to keep doing your thing. So that was a huge part of my progression at 12. But that was kind of how we did it. That was kind of our upbringing. And my dad and my brother, again, a huge part of my story and doing what we loved.
Well, and you were really a trailblazer. I mean, there had never been a Tongan Samoan player in the PGA, and I know your brother shared on my buddy Nick's podcast, The Naked Patient. He shared a story about some discrimination that he went through early on. Did you have some of that against you as well?
Yeah, you obviously, one of the things that I can never look past is just the way sometimes you felt when you're at a golf course, and sometimes we would pop up, and in our minivan we had back in the day, and all of us kids would be in the car, and we'd all get out, and I'd be wearing my dad's shirt, and my dad's pants, and he's trying to tie the belt on, and we're pulling up to this country club, right? And so you definitely can't. I'm not going to overlook the fact that there was definitely, I didn't feel like I belonged a lot, when I was a kid. And I don't know that was a race thing or more of just like a socioeconomic thing of just like people like, what are these guys doing here? But I definitely felt a lot of that, growing up. And my brother and I were the only Polynesians that were playing. And a lot of times we're the only minorities.
I was going to say, people probably didn't even know. A lot of people on those courses probably didn't know what you were, right?
Yeah,
they're like,
a lot of people didn't know who we were. So back in the day, we would have to tell them like Junior Seau or, this was before The Rock.
Yeah, sure.
So like Junior Seau was kind of like the guy. And so we're like, yeah, you guys heard of Junior Seau? And they're like, oh yeah. We're like, yeah, like, same island as him. So anyways, and now it's like The Rock, right?
Yeah.
But back then, that's kind of what it was. And, but like at the end of the day, there definitely was tough times, but even for me, like being a Polynesian, doing something different, even from our own community, sometimes it was kind of tricky because it was just like,
why aren't you playing football?
Yeah, people looking at us like, why do you guys golf? But at the end of the day, my brother and I were both great athletes, and we ended up getting the respect of our community in Rose Park, the Polynesian people. I think because we were doing something different, and I think they saw that we were excelling at it, and we were becoming pretty great at what we were doing, and we weren't going to turn away from. Yeah, I mean, you've
become a hero to that culture, man. It's been really cool to watch because, again, like I said, I'm very connected to a lot of people in that community, and you're. I mean, you are.
It's been so cool to see how golf has changed, how the perception of golf has changed. When I was young, I actually didn't want to tell anybody I golf.
Really?
Yeah, just because I was like, this is the dorky. Like, I agree, this is a dorky sport, and it is like a blue collar sport. Like, and I don't probably belong to playing this sport. But as time has gone on, like, it is really cool to see the perception of the game. I think has changed pretty dramatically. Like now, there's a lot of Polynesian kids that play golf. A lot of Polynesian men and women that play golf.
You've inspired a whole generation.
Yeah, and it seems like it's more accepted. And but doing something different wasn't the thing to do when we were doing it. But I'm happy that my brother and I had each other, and we've kind of blazed through that barrier for our people and just for minorities in general, to do something different and excel.
Yeah, well, Polynesians are so athletic naturally that, you throw a charity event at Top Golf. I went to it, a couple of times, and I saw one of your nephews there, and he was like 10 years old, and he was hitting it over the freaking net, dude. I'm like, this kid, I don't know where he's at now. It's been a few years, but I'm sure he's like one of the top in the state or whatever at his age. But I just remember thinking like, dude, if Polynesians ever decide to take over golf, it's gonna be scary for the rest of us because you naturally just have so much talent.
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. Being around Polynesian people, like we're extremely physically gifted. But I also think because of our demeanor and our humble background, we're so respectful. And I just feel like at the end of the day, we have so much to offer in so many different areas of business and sports and different things that that's a lot of times that's my message. We're always going to have amazing football players. We're always going to have amazing athletes play football. That doesn't mean that all of them need to just play football. If we have a love for drawing, if we have a love for business, becoming a lawyer, a doctor, becoming a golfer, and doing something different, man, let's lean into that, because we have the goods to be great at anything, I feel like.
So how do you balance? I mean, you have so many things going. You got 5 kids.
Right.
You're a man of faith, so you're very involved with your community and everything else. You know, I mean, you're on the road so many weeks. You've had a knee injury that you haven't even been able to get surgery on for, I mean, basically the whole year, right? You've finally taken a little bit of time off right now. But how do you balance everything and make sure you find time, you know, to put into your family and to, you know, your faith and all those things?
Yeah, I don't know if balance is the right word. You know, but I definitely feel like I have priorities. I try to have priorities, and the top of the priorities are always going to be at the top, you know, and that's my family and my faith. And, you know, golf has been an incredible vehicle for me to inspire other people. And I love to do that. You know, I love having the opportunity to do something different, like I mentioned, but to play a game that I love, and that inspires other people to maybe do something great. And I got that ignited in me from, you know, Tiger Woods and from other great men and people. And so if I can do that for someone else that's watching me, I think that's a great thing. But I try to never lose sight of who I am and what I'm trying to do. And at the same time, you know, my family is the most important thing to me. So being a husband and a father has changed my life, you know, and in the best ways I think that it can change a man. And I've been fortunate and blessed that I have a great wife that supports me, and we're trying to do this thing together. And, you know, that's what's been the fun part for us. You know, a lot of people follow us on Instagram or my wife on TikTok. They know that we travel together. That's something that's so different, especially with 5 kids. You know, a lot of the tour guys, you know, that I play with, they have so much respect for me because they're like, we don't know how you do it. We have one, and we're, you know, trying to stay afloat. And you and your wife just have, you know, we literally have a traveling circus. I mean, we travel with a nanny, we travel with a tutor. It's a whole thing, you know. It's organized chaos is kind of what I call it.
Beautiful.
But it's incredible for us. You know, it works, and it's really cool that I get to travel with my family and be able to wear so many different hats. But at the end of the day, to me, like the most important one is the husband and father hat, and I'm blessed to be.
Well, I had a really cool moment. I talked about this before we started the podcast with you. When I first met you, the first time I met you, so I was hanging out with Gipper. You know, we'd golfed a few times, and we'd bring him in as our ringer if we wanted to win the scramble event or whatever. He does. He likes that, and he's good at it. And we came to your event. It was in LA. I can't remember which tournament it was. It was the one that Bubba Watson won, and you took second. Yeah. And he was kind of in the lead the whole time, so it wasn't like a disappointing second. It was like just a great, you know, second place finish. And I remember afterwards, Gipper's like, "Well, let's all go eat with Tony and his family." And I was pretty intimidated. I was just like, "Oh, okay." Like, I don't know if I'm belong here. It's like one of those moments where you're like, "How am I sitting here?" You know. But I remember we went to this little hole. You just found this little hole in the wall Hawaiian place, and you just ordered like 3 of everything for your family. It was hilarious. And we're sitting there, and it was the most normal family experience. You couldn't have told, out of the 20 people sitting there, you couldn't have been able to tell which one was the one that just took second place at this major event. It was a really beautiful moment, man. I just remember watching and thinking, like, this dude is like so intentional. He's so focused on the right things. And that was the day I was like, I am going to cheer for this guy till the day I die.
Oh, thanks.
It was just cool. It was cool to get that back because there was no cameras. There was nobody there. I mean, this was like you with your family. And I was just like, you didn't even remember me being there, which was kind of funny because I was just I just felt dumb being there. I was like, I don't belong to be here. But it was just a really cool moment for me.
Yeah, no, thanks. Well, I remember that, and that was cool that you were there. But that was a fun week. You know, at the end of the day, it was like a stepping stone week for me because Bubba is a guy also that I looked up to, and I'd finished second, and it was another second place finish at the time of my career where I seemed to be stacking up a lot of seconds. But that was a cool moment. And LA is a special place for us. You know, my parents are from, you know, LA. They both moved from the islands to LA, and my grandparents have so many great memories in LA, so I'm happy we could share.
Man. And it was fun. We came out. I went with Tio, and we came out and watched you in the Ryder Cup in Paris.
Yeah, that was wild.
That was awesome. You kicked Tommy's butt that day. Right. You played really well. The team didn't do well, but I think you had the best record that week of the guys on the team.
Yeah, I think me and JT both did.
Yeah,
that was a heck of a week.
So, what's your favorite? Maybe you could share your favorite golf moment you've ever had, and then your most disappointing, or maybe just one of those moments, because I think in golf the highs and the lows are what make it so intriguing. And sports in general, right? Like, I'm a Cleveland Indians baseball fan, dude, and we played yesterday. We're playing the Yankees, game 3 of the series. We're down 2-0, And we were up 3-1 in the last inning, and our pitcher had never blown a save this year, not one. He's like the Cy Young winner. He's going to take second in Cy Young. Gives up a 2-run homer to Judge, another homer. Next thing we know, we're down 5-3. So I'm just like devastated. I literally left to go to the gym. I was watching it on my phone still, and then they hit a 2-run homer in the bottom of the ninth with 2 outs, no one on, and then we tied it, and then we end up winning in extra innings. I'm like, only sports can give you this. And golf, I mean, it can be hole to hole. You can get those experiences. But those highs are so high, and those lows can be really devastating. But maybe share one of each of those.
Yeah, so I would say, I've been asked this a lot. What's my favorite moment of my career? There's a couple that stand out. I grew up watching golf and watching a lot of these guys that were fathers, and they would have their kids run up to them on the green after they would win a tournament. So that was always instilled in my mind. And when I became a father, I always knew that was something that I wanted. And so I've had that opportunity a couple times. The first time was at the 3M Open in 22. It was my third victory. My family was there. It was a great week, and I ended up winning. So I was able to share that moment with them, which is extremely special. And we did it again in Mexico last year for my 6th win. So I've had them there for a couple. I would say those are some of the highlights. But, in 2013, I finally got through qualifying school. I turned pro in 2007, and I didn't get on the PGA Tour until 2014. Wow. So 7 years of just tough.
That's a grind in there, isn't it?
It's a tough grind. Like the mini tour life, golf's life isn't the PGA Tour life.
There's no fans. There's no cheering.
Exactly. There's nobody there. I mean, it's basically organized gambling at the tournaments that you're playing at. You put in $1,000, and if you win the tournament, you might win $5,000. But if you finish worse than third, you're going to lose money, right? So, that's the life I lived for 6-7 years, not getting through qualifying school. But anyways, to get to the PGA Tour, qualifying school is it. That's your key to get your PGA Tour card. I finally got my Korn Ferry Tour card, my 7th try. And to put that in perspective, guys like Tiger, Phil, John Rahm, not only do these guys, would they have not failed once, they don't even go to Q school. They're that good. They literally just go straight to the tour. They get their exemptions and they're straight on the tour. So not only was I not getting through on my first try, second, third, fourth, fifth, literally took me 7 tries. So I didn't have a lot of reason during those years to believe that I was going to be anything, just anything. I don't know.
You're just hoping to eventually get on the tour.
I was hoping to eventually just even get on the tour. And so I finally got through qualifying school and got my Korn Ferry Tour status in 2013. And I feel like that moment when I walked off the green in Palm Springs in 2013, it was just my wife, and that changed my whole life because I knew I finally was going to have an opportunity to play on the PGA Tour through the Korn Ferry Tour, and that changed everything for me. So I would say that's still probably the high moment of my career because all the hard work and all the years came to that moment, and I finally saw a future of me on the PGA Tour.
Especially after losing 7 or the 6 other times, or not losing, but not making it. You just failing, start thinking is this ever going to happen for me? And
the fortitude to get through those years, I look back on now, and still those were the years that really polished me to become what I've become and what I will become, because I was able to overcome so many obstacles during those 6 years of failure, those hard 6 years. I got married in those 6 years. I lost my mom in those 6 years. I started to have kids in those 6 years. All of everything built up to a moment where I finally saw a future of me in the game. But without that polishing of those years, there is no success moving forward. So,
well, it's really beautiful because I think most people, they have dreams, or they have, things they want to accomplish, but they have a hard time keeping the vision through the pain, through the struggles, through the very difficult things, like you said, like losing your mom. And I think it's, that ability to, I call it being in the tunnel. Like when you're in the tunnel, the only problem is you don't know when it's going to end. That's right. So that's why it's so hard. Yeah. Once you get through it, you're so grateful for the tunnel because it's what kind of formed you, right?
Not when you're in
but when you're in it, because it can be 20 years, it can be never. Like you're just am I ever going to get out of this thing? And so for you, how did you keep the vision, through the tunnel when it was so difficult to keep going? Because you're not making hardly any money. I mean, you're scraping by on everything.
Barely staying afloat. I was married, barely staying afloat. We had 2 kids. By the time I made it through, and really hard times. I would say there were enough silver linings along the way, just in my game, where I like I told you before, I'm a very hopeful and faith-filled person, and I always felt like I was I always felt like I was going to do something great in the game of golf. Like I always felt that way. And I don't know if it's just something that was innately in me or something that was built up over years through time. But I always felt like when push comes to shove, I was going to make it, you know? And so those years I look back on now and they were failures. But at the time I remember thinking, oh man, it's only a shot here. It's only a shot there. Like I remained optimistic.
It's such a good lesson in that, dude. That's where people.
Like I remained optimistic more than I was thinking that it was a failure. You know, it was like, oh, I'm growing from this. Like I got it, right? Like that's the type
you
of attitude.
See yourself getting better too.
Yes, I saw myself getting better. I felt like I was getting better, and every year, I spoke that to myself. That was like, hey, it didn't happen this year, and a lot of those years I had to do that to myself. There wasn't somebody telling me, Tony, in 2014, you're going to be on the tour and you're going to become a star. I had to do that by myself.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't anybody whispering in my ear that this was about to happen. So to me, innately, I think just there were enough silver linings along the way, and I just continued to believe that I was built for it. You know, all these kids these days, you know, I'm built for this, you know. And so I had enough, I think, in my game to recognize that I had what it took when it was going to happen. And that's why in 2013, when I finally broke through, that was a huge part. I know two parts of your question. What was the, you know?
Well, no, but I want to, it's such a cool answer that you said, because so many people would think it was, you know, one of the big tournaments or, you know, even just like your first Masters or something, you know, and all those kinds of things. But like, I think I feel from you, like the depth of what that meant to you. Like that was the moment you're like, oh my gosh, I had this dream. And I did it, and I'm here. And what's cool too is like you've continued to just continue to push on that dream and continue to progress. But it's so cool when somebody doesn't give up on their dream. Yeah. Because so many people do. I mean, it's hard. Right. It's really hard. And most people don't have a wife that's as supportive as yours was, I'm sure, because I know she was without even knowing. A, I know her. I've met her several times. But B, of course she was. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to keep doing 100%. It. Nobody wants to go through that grind for 7 years. It's like minor league baseball players or, you know, whatever it is. Like people don't hang on to that dream like that. And so I think just the power of seeing somebody see that through is really beautiful, man. Yeah,
and there's no question. You know, my wife was a huge part of it. She was my cheerleader through those times and through those hard times. And it was extremely difficult. As we look back on it, though, it's what forged our early marriage and our relationship now. You know, we look back and we say, man, we got through that. We can get through anything, you know. And then sometimes you don't, like you said, when you're in the tunnel, sometimes you don't know that you're in it. And we were 100% in the tunnel, and we were drowned in the tunnel, you know, with kids and with the circumstances that we were in. And but it, you know, I think vision is such a huge thing. I told you before, when I watched the Masters in 1997. When I saw them put the green jacket on Tiger Woods, I saw me. And I don't know that that's something that anybody can ignite in you. That's just something that came for me from within, that was going to be me. Whether like, you know, what do they say, you know, ground or high water, whatever that saying is, it was like that's going to happen. You know, like at the end of the day, like I still strongly believe that, having been on tour, I'm going to have hopefully many more chances to put on that green jacket. But that's a vision that was just like instilled in me from the start. And so when I started with that tunnel, it was like, we're getting there, you know? And at the end of the day, it was like, I would have never visioned that my life would have had to go through that for me to get there. But I'm so happy that it has. And I would just say that my story and that whole journey is really what it's all about. I look back now and it's, you know, a lot of people talk about it. It's all about the journey. It's not about the destination. It's all about the journey. And to me, like, I really feel like I understand what that truly means, because I can look back and say, man, it really was about that journey, because without that, again, I wouldn't have been able to accomplish much when I got to the tour. But when I got to the PGA Tour, I was emotionally and physically ready to be a tour player. I was ready to travel. I was ready to become one of the best players in the world, and I was ready to win, you know, at the end of the day. And that's, sorry, my guy.
No, man, I love it.
That's something that's really cool for me, that I think I can hang my hat on, is that I've earned my way to becoming one of the best players in the world. And I don't think you can become anything great without having to go through things that are really tough to forge you to become the person that you are. And at the end of the day, that's really what it has become. It's not been the accolades. It's not been the trophies. It's not been anything other than I feel like I've become this strong person and this like faithful person because of the things that I had to go through. And it's, again, it's who I've become more than it's been about these accolades that I've attained.
Well, it's true confidence. Like, and golf is such a beautiful way to gain it because there is no one else. It's you. And you know the struggle that it went through. And I think confidence in life only comes when you do the things you say you're going to do and you push hard. And then eventually, after many struggles, you succeed. And then you go, oh my gosh, like that just happened. Yeah. And so why it means so much to you, why you even get emotional about it is because that's confidence. Like you have built that relationship with yourself and with God and with your family that nobody can shake. Like you did it and you know that, and you know that it was you that pulled that off.
That's right. And you remember along the way, you know, when I first turned pro at 17, you know, there were a lot of naysayers, you know, when I first turned pro, like, I can't believe this kid thinks he can go pro and become any good.
Because a lot of people want you to go to college and stuff, right?
Yeah, like if he would have went to college, you know, I think he would have been way better off. So many naysayers early. And then I was basically a nobody. By the time I was 21, I was basically like, oh, of course, we knew he wasn't going to make it. Of course he wasn't going to make it. He thought he could turn pro at a young age. Like, I was basically an afterthought by the time I was 21, 22. Wow. And so those were really the years that I was able to kind of forge who I was and go through those tough times. But I would say that was obviously, both of those stories are probably like the good and the bad of, you know,
sure.
kind of answering your question in a long story. I will also say in 2020, I got to the waste management tournament and I was playing great golf and I got to the final round and I had a 2-shot lead with 3 holes to go. And Webb Simpson, birdie's 17 and birdie's 18 on me. I have a 10-footer to win the tournament and I end up missing on 18. So we go to a playoff, and Webb Simpson ends up birding the playoff hole. And it was just one of those weeks where I felt like this was my week to win. And again, this was during that 5-year stretch of Tony Finau can't win a golf tournament. He can only come close.
It started getting heavy on you?
This started to get heavy because now this was about 4.5 years in, removed from the last time I've won, you know, about 4 years later. And it's starting to get heavy, and these second places are starting to mess with my mind a little bit because I'm like, maybe they're right. Maybe I'm great, but I'm not great enough to win big tournaments. And so I end up losing that tournament, and COVID starts the next month. So I have to now sit over the next 3 months in this area of, who am I on the golf course? Like, am I actually this second place guy? And that, you know, I haven't really talked about this that much, but that was a really hard place for me during COVID to live because it was the hardest loss of my PGA Tour career. Because again, I had the lead.
Well, that's a big tournament
I
too.
had a big tournament. Waste Management is a big tournament, and that's one, because I live there in Scottsdale now. I would have loved to check that off the list. You know, like, yeah, you know, I live here and I also won the tournament. You know, I wasn't able to do that at that time, but that was a tough loss, you know. And I think going through having to go through the next 3 months and kind of drown in that was extremely difficult. But again, you know, the very next year, I finally break through. I win which to this point in my career is still the biggest tournament in my career. I win the first playoff event in 2021, which is the Northern Trust, and ever since then, you know, I've become one of the most winningest guys on the PGA Tour. But, you know, at the end of the day, again, I feel like so much of my story is just like, go through hard things, run through hard things, keep running through hard things. You know, one of my favorite guys, Justin Sua, I don't know if you know Justin, you know, very well. He's my process coach now.
Oh, sweet.
But he tells me, he gives me the analogy of the cow and the buffalo. And he says, when there's a windstorm or a thunderstorm or a snowstorm, He said the cows run away from the storm, and they end up getting caught in the storm way longer, he says, than they should. He said the buffalo, they run straight into the eye of the storm. They're through the storm. He said they face the storm, and they're through it in no time. And he's like, your career has just been running through the storm. And I said, I love that analogy, because to me, that's what it is. It's like, are you going to hide from all the problems and all the hard things, or are you just going to freaking run through that thing and end up a winner on the other side? And so to me, that's a great analogy, and something that I've been able to, in my career, be like, yeah, that is, I feel like, my career. Run through the hard things, keep going, just keep going, and you're going to end up a winner on the other side, you know?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's so inspiring, dude. It's so fun to cheer for. You've given everybody in Utah something really fun to do on every golf event. Like, I'm serious. Like, my first thing I do every Saturday, I'm not a Thursday, Friday watch golf kind of guy, but every Saturday I'm like, all right, where's Tony? It's my first question is, where's Tony? And then, like, who's in the lead, you know? It's like, because I want to watch. And if you're anywhere close to the leaderboard on Sunday, I'm going to watch that event, you know?
I love it.
It's awesome.
I feel the support from Utah, and that's the great thing. You know, I've always had great support, and I feel so much love and support from Utah, and I love being from Utah and representing such a great state. You know, I feel like we have so many great people, so many great connections, and it's just super pumped to really just rep Utah.
Yeah, man, you've been a great ambassador, and the state is, you can tell they're so proud to have you and on the tour. So, well, dude, you got a big year coming. You just got knee surgery.
That's right.
So you're in recovery, and then your next event you'll be playing in is when?
I'll play again in December.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll play in the Grant Thornton Invitational with Nelly Corda.
Is that the beginning of the season?
Yeah, so our season starts in January.
That's right. Okay,
yeah,
so it just starts.
So this is nice to have, you know, a little bit of time off. I mean, there's still tour events going on.
Yeah.
But it's with the whole season. It's, you know, the real season doesn't start till January. So
were a few people disappointed because your surgery obviously couldn't play in the Black Desert one that just happened?
Yeah, no,
was that
definitely
tough not being able to play at your home?
Yeah, I think a lot of people were disappointed. I think a lot of people maybe were going out to watch and were expecting to see me there. But you know, my son actually had a big national event last week. Oh. And I was one of the coaches, so you know that was the main reason I couldn't play. But
that's cool though. I mean, you've earned that right to be able to like go watch your son and be able to be there for him. Because how often do you get to do that? Basically, never.
100%. This is one of the very few times and rare times. So I definitely was at the right place.
Well, and I've learned this in my life. Like you get a lot of demands on you, and you know you've been doing a lot of different things, and people want you to be at everything, and they want you. And but I've learned, like, every time I say yes to something, I'm saying no to a bunch of other things.
That's right.
So it's not that you said no to that event. It's that if you said yes to that, you're saying no to your child. Right. You're saying no to so many other things that you need to be doing.
That would have been way too hard to deal with.
100%.
With my son, trying to tell him, like, look, I know I told you this, but I'm not going to be able to go to your tournament. Like, he would have been devastated. So at the end of the day, you know, I think that the golf tournament, the Black Desert Golf Tournament, you know, it's going to be there for many years, and I know I'm going to be able to participate in it in years to come.
What's the best course in Utah, by the way?
Ooh, best course in Utah. I love Victory Ranch. Victory Ranch, Glen Wild, I would say are like two right at the top. I think Promontory, Nicholas course is up there as well. But I would say most of the great courses we have in Utah are like on the east side, like Park City.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Tony, appreciate you, man. So much fun. Thank you again, man.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.